Imagine this, a future where our sun, the life giver of Earth, meets its inevitable demise. A few years ago, I walked into my department's weekly Astro Coffee Journal Club and had an existential crisis about the future of our Earth. We weren't even discussing Earth directly. We were talking about a newly published research paper about interesting features in the spectrum of light from a very distant star, a stellar remnant called a white dwarf. This white dwarf couldn't affect our planet, but it gave us a glimpse of the future of our sun and, in a particularly gruesome way, ourselves. First, a little reassurance. The sun is not going to explode. One of the most common astronomy misconceptions is that our sun will go supernova someday, incinerating our solar system. But from what we know of stellar evolution, that's not at all what the sun's future looks like. There are two main ways that a star can go supernova. One is a core collapse supernova, happening to very massive stars. The other is a white dwarf having an unfortunate interaction with a companion star. Our sun, it's not massive enough and it doesn't have a stellar companion, so supernova not happening. But that doesn't mean it's immortal. Today, the sun is a giant fusion reactor transforming hydrogen into helium, releasing a huge amount of energy. Some of this energy escapes as light, but some goes inward, making the plasma inside the sun bounce around at high speed. This bouncing plasma creates pressure, keeping the sun from collapsing under its own weight, like air pressure inside a balloon. For the next 5 billion years, the sun will carry on like this, but eventually it will start running out of hydrogen. When that happens, things go wrong. Fusion slows down, pressure drops, and the core compresses. Helium inside, now hotter and denser, will start fusing into heavier elements, releasing energy even faster. The sun will brighten and swell. By then, the sun will have already boiled off Earth's oceans, likely ending all terrestrial life. But things get worse for Mercury and Venus. As the sun evolves, it will puff up to hundreds of times its current size, engulfing the orbits of these planets and vaporizing them completely. What about Earth? Will it be engulfed or pushed farther out? Honestly, it doesn't look great either way. In the red giant phase, the sun will no longer maintain fusion. Its core will compress and the outer layers will slough off into space, creating a beautiful planetary nebula. Meanwhile, the core will form an extremely dense white dwarf star, held up not by fusion but by quantum mechanics. All stars like the sun end their lives this way, slowly cooling and fading. Back to that journal club. Researchers were looking at white dwarf spectral lines and found pollution, heavier elements like calcium, potassium, and sodium. These elements were debris from rocky planets the stars had recently devoured. While reeling from this existential horror, I discovered that astronomers have been studying polluted white dwarf stars for decades. And sure, one could argue that a supernova would be worse, but to me there was something visceral about those spectral lines, wondering about the poor lost planet that produced them. Maybe someday, billions of years from now, some alien astronomer will look our way. Perhaps they'll see a smudge of dirt in the light of a lonely white dwarf surrounded by the glow of a nebula and spare a thought for the beautiful world we once were.